how's it going? I have to empty this thing. Alright. Let's get... Hey, Christy, how are you? I'm gonna make myself a fun birthday coffee because, well, honestly, because why not? It's my birthday, so I get to have delicious coffee, right? So let's put some cookie butter in it, because who's gonna tell me no? Like who? Nobody. We're also gonna get, hey, thank you all for the happy birthday wishes. We're also gonna get the advent calendar and see if it goes with cookie butter. Let's see what happens. How were all of your weekends? Did everyone have a good weekend? Did you do anything fun? My daughter got her first ever fever. She's never been sick in all her 11 plus months of life, and here we come to the end of this year and she got her first fever. Wah, wah. But you know, it is what it is, right? What can you do? It was bound to happen eventually. Well, let's see who... Yeah, it's not a bad track record, that's for sure. Let's see what today's coffee is. We did 17, did we do 18? We did 18, so we need to do 19. Where is 19? So that I can see if it's gonna go well with cookie butter. 19. Okay, 19's over here. Did we get a decent birthday sleep in it? We got medium. Oh, double espresso dolce is definitely going to go well with cookie butter. We're going to need more than just this because this is just a shot. But let's go ahead and add this, and then we'll see what else we're given for this lovely birthday coffee. So that was 19. Let's see what 20 is. Okay, 20 is over here. I love the dolce espresso. I don't even need to taste it. So that is real gross. We're just gonna block that person and report them. Yep. Let's go ahead and do that. There we go. Reported, blocked, muted, all of the above. Done and done. We're not playing like that. Nope. Yeah, Amanda and I were quick on that one, huh? And then this is Solio, no idea, but it seems to be unflavored, which should be great to pair with cookie butter because whatever, right? Whatever. What'd you guys do this weekend? Anything interesting? Do you guys have any New Year's plans? Somebody, you guys want to laugh? Who wants a good laugh? Raise your hand if you'd like to laugh. The comment, not my coffee. Yes, of course. Yeah, the coffee's great. Oh, please, my coffee's fantastic. I mean, at least I assume it's going to be fantastic because whatever, I love coffee. Who wants to laugh? Someone who I know, actually multiple people who I know, asked me what I was doing for New Year's. Like I don't have an 11-month-old. I was like, well, we'll be at home putting her to bed. I hope you have a great time at your parties. People with 11-month-olds don't go out for New Year's. It's just not a thing that happens. Or, I mean, maybe they do. Yeah, I'll probably be up, sure, yeah. What's a party? Amanda's like, please, I don't even have an 11-month-old and I still don't know what a party is. Yeah. I laughed. I was like, well, you know, I think I'm gonna be here in my pajamas. But you know what, I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me. cookie butter is delicious, you guys. 10 out of 10 would recommend to a friend. And I do, regularly. Granny party in the PJs and everyone would stay. Yeah, 100%. It's much safer to be home also. I completely agree. But I was just laughing that they even asked, you know. I thought that was pretty funny. Pretty funny. What else do we have going on today? We're going to read, obviously, like we do. We're going to drink coffee. And that's the whole thing. That was an odd noise from the machine that I couldn't have anticipated nor expected. But if any of you have New Year's plans, I'd love to live vicariously and hear about them. Please feel free to share with the group should you have any fantastic plans that you want to share with us. I need a spoon. Rainbow spoon, because obviously, who doesn't make their coffee with a rainbow spoon? Let's get real. I do. It's kind of an awful sound, right? That scraping, but like I have to get it out. So like there's nothing else I can do really, but it's not a great sound now that I'm thinking of it. Oh, poor baby. Going through it of us and draw. Wait, 1 weekend to do. Wait, hold on. I do need a little silicone spatula thing. Oh, like the slime spatulas, but for the coffee. Wait, Ray, I think part of your comment must have been filtered because all I saw was of us and draw one on the weekend to do, and that sentence doesn't make any sense on its own, so there must have been more to that. Please feel free to let me know what the rest of that sentence was, because that can't possibly be it. Because I have no idea what that means on its own. If anyone wants to translate for me, I'm open to translations. Everyone drop in the comments your guess as to what Ray meant. Let's see what the rest of this is. She said, of us and draw one on the weekend to do. What's the rest of the sentence? Quick, everybody can make your wildest guess in the comments. Because I have no idea. No idea. None. I mean, it has to be some kind of craft project, right? I mean, one would assume. I don't really know. Yeah. I don't know where we're going with this, Ray. DIY bucket list, index cards, and each of us writes for fun apart. Okay. Aw, I love that. Whoa, what is going on with my kid? Hold on. Something is awry here. I was reading something else yesterday, but let's get back to our book at hand. New Year's Eve tradition for the year ahead. I love that. That's so cute. Yes, more cookie butter for all. Okay, where were we on the Prince of Oregon? Okay, here we go. So, is everyone caught up, or does anyone need a little refresher on where we were in the book before I move on to the rest? Excuse me, from where we were on Saturday. We are 82% into this book, you guys, so we are real close to being done here. You know what I hate, Amanda? That you can pin comments again, but I can't see them. It says you pinned a comment. I can't see what you pinned. No idea. I hate it. It tells me you pinned something, but what? Who's to say? Oh man, that coffee's good. We love to see it. Okay, so Edward is about to meet up with his parents, I think, or he's supposed to go to the Christmas market and then meet up with his parents for a chat. It's all sounding awful, honestly, but we're in Whitelock for the first time, you guys. We have been in either on an airplane or in Astoria for the entirety of this. Oh yeah, I saw that. It's a great idea, right? What a great fun idea for New Year's. I kind of want to adopt it. Really nice idea. Hey Isabella, happy almost New Year. So we're in Whitelock, you guys, for the first time. We have reached the aisle. Let's go. The fact that Edward was still awake by the time he got to the palace was nothing short of a miracle. You got a book, yay! I have to go, can't spoil this for me, not caught up. All right, thank you, see you later, Christy. He'd gone to Frostfell at his parents' insistence and done the whole royal out in public thing. It was nothing like Astoria where the people didn't recognize him unless Mikey pointed him out and he could sneak under the radar. No, here in Crown Haven, Whitelock's capital city, he couldn't blink without having someone snap a photo of it. He barely made it out of the car that had been sent to pick him up before people were hooting and hollering his name. Prince Edward! Prince Edward! Can we get a photo? How about an autograph? Edward, will you be shopping at the market for Christmas presents today? It was grating on his nerves, and it only served to make him miss the peace and quiet of the Astorian seaside. Of course, he was Christmas shopping there today. What other reason did anyone have to come to a place packed with people this close to the holidays? Did these people not realize that this was a PR stunt set up by his dear mother? Could they not see that most people who couldn't take 5 steps without being hounded wouldn't come to this place this crowded unless they had to? But it wasn't like Edward could say all of that to them. No, he had to play the part. Even if he was the wayward one in the family, he had to save face here. Yes, hello, he called out to the throng. I'm here to find Christmas gifts for the family. And with a wave, he was off down the aisle of the market, people grabbing and pushing at him as he went along. And when it was finally all over, he returned to his childhood home with enough bags filled to fill the enough bags to fill the back half of a vehicle. He wasn't sure meeting with his parents would be any better than the women at the market flinging their marriage-eligible daughters at him, though. Evening, Morton, he nodded to the butler. Might you tell me where I can find my father? Might as well rip the Band-Aid off instead of prolonging the pain. The study, sir. Thank you. Edward gave the old man that he'd known all of his life a pat on the arm and then padded down the long, marble-floored hallway toward his father's study. He placed a hand on the knob when he reached the door and stood there silently for what he assumed would be his last moment of peace ever. Then he mustered up the courage to enter, didn't even bother knocking. Hello, Father. Edward, son. King Alfred waved him over from his perch behind the oversized desk. How was Frostfell? With a shrug, Edward made his way over and plopped down in the chair that every guest sat on the other side of the desk. Same as every year, flowing with hot chocolate, bustling with shoppers, carolers there to entertain the masses. He forced a smile on his face. It didn't even come close to looking authentic. King Alfred furrowed his brow and nodded. Yes, well, let's get right down to business, shall we then? Edward waved a hand through the air, motioning for his father to go on. Astoria, the man across from Edward cleared his throat, seems to be a lost cause. I've spoken in depth with Alistair and... Father, what is this royal rides? The king held up a few papers with the royal seal on them. With his lips pressed tightly together, Edward cleared his throat. Well, Father, it was to give our people in Astoria a ride to the polls. They don't allow rideshare there, if you can believe that. He forced out a chuckle, hoping that would lighten the mood. The mayor is so corrupt that you'll want to toss him out on his rear as soon as you meet him. Anyway, without that, the elders and those without means of transportation needed a way to... And a hand came up to stop him. One might say I'm no businessman, Edward. You know I have advisors to take care of all of that for me. But, hey Gigi. Good Lord, this was starting already. I might be a business. Our family might be one, I suppose, but I've never run one of these side things. Hey Liz. What are they calling them these days? Side hustles? I believe that's what your brother called it. Whatever, be that as it may. The king's words were getting slower, slightly louder, and dare he say, harsher. I do believe it is the objective of all businesses to turn some kind of profit. Dad, Edward said, almost the same way that Emma said when she was addressing her paternal parent. And his dad shook his head. Edward, if I wanted to throw money away, I would do it here, where at least there's a return in goodwill from our people. I have it on good authority that most small businesses aren't even profitable in their first year. Edward clapped back with that line. As a kid, that might have gotten him a spanking, but in this moment, it merely earned him a laugh from good old Daddy-O. Edward, please. The king leaned back in his chair. We are not a charity. If I thought that you wanted to be a businessman... Wait, do you want to be a businessman?
There was a pause, and a light bulb floating above his father's head in a moment of clarity for the king that kept Edward silent simply because it wasn't true. If it's a loan for some sort of start-up venture that you're after, I tell you, your mother and I would actually be thrilled to loan you. No. Edward sat forward in his chair. No, I was just trying to do what you asked me to do over there, to bring us back to the people. Father, they don't even know about us. They think they're American. King Alfred sighed. Maybe they should be. After reviewing the numbers with Alistair, the whole place seems like a lost cause. The Americans have been after me to sell that land for years. They just want to complete the state. They don't even care if it's a sinkhole or where the money goes to die. They're in so much debt, what's another few million to them? No. This time there was an exclamation, a shock. No, you can't sell it. I certainly can sell it, Edward's father retorted. I own the place. Hell, I own every single one of the people there if you really want to get down to it. Father, Edward scrunched up his nose, you can't own people. It's the 21st century. Even royals don't do that anymore. And now he sounded like someone else he knew. Someone he missed. His father was wholly unfazed. Edward, these bills are untenable. I need you to focus. You will stay here in Crown Haven. You will participate in royal events with the family. You will not return to your gallivanting around Europe. You will not spend frivolous amounts of state money. You will learn to conduct yourself like the prince that you are. The prince I am was trying to straighten things out. Trying doesn't mean doing, and that shows in your lack of proper effort over there. Once again, Edward could feel King Alfred's voice start to rise, unpleased with his son's remarks. Go speak with Alistair Pembley. He'll find an assignment for you. Just once in your life, your mother and I would like to see you do something good, for God's sake. Act your age and act your station. And with that, it appeared that jolly old Papa could take no more. He stood up from his desk and he stormed out the side door of the room. Bollocks. Edward sat there quiet and alone for a few minutes. Not enough minutes, if he was honest, but then the same door his father had left through opened, and of course, it was his mother who entered. She was a well-groomed woman who kept herself in shape and wore a lot of pokey jewelry. This did, of course, mean that the hugs were loving but angular, not soft and engulfing like a cuddly old grandma. Mother, he stood out of politeness, smiling as she walked toward him. Darling, she said as she wrapped her arms around him. He doesn't mean it. No? Edward asked through pursed lips. Sure did sound like he meant it. Edward, she held each of his arms in her hands. Your father and I just want the best for you. And you haven't been living up to your full potential, and that's all he meant. Don't you people get that I was trying to? He held his hands to his temples and then pulled them away, making little explosion sounds with his mouth while his fingers imitated his brain exploding from the side of his skull. And then he flopped back into the chair. Never mind. It's fine. It's not worth the argument. I'm here. I hear you. I'll do what you want me to do and live out my days in this castle, serving the people of Whitelock and the Crown. There. Is that what you all want to hear? And it was at that moment that Edward realized that even if his father couldn't own the people of Astoria, he did, in fact, own him. That scene was way harsh, you guys. That was way harsh. Like, really harsh and really hurtful. I remember being really sad when I wrote it. I was like, a little bit like quiver-lipped. Like, it doesn't matter how old you are. If your parents talk to you like that, you feel really sad. They can be harsh, and it felt really rough. I can't believe I ended it with him owning him. That's like a kick in the pants line. That was good. I'm proud of myself for coming up with that. Even if he doesn't own the people of Astoria, he does own Edward. Wow. Way harsh, Ty. Way harsh, but like, not bad, right? Good turnaround on my part. Pretty proud of that. I didn't remember it, but I'm proud of it in the aftermath. The next morning, Edward. Your Highness, the voice on the other side of the door sounded concerned. I don't want to have to come in without permission, but the lack of response is beginning to worry the staff. Edward blinked one eye open and called out, What? The door opened and a young valet was accompanied by Morton the butler. Oh, you are alive. What? Edward repeated, stretching in his bed. I'm sorry, old boy, he said to Morton, squinting at the younger man that he didn't know. And I'm also sorry to... You? He asked, uncertain. Your Highness, it is time to rise. Why? Was all Edward could muster. Your father and mother have requested the presence of you and your siblings at the Carnwell Park annual tree lighting ceremony. Oh, for God's sakes. Edward grabbed the nearest pillow and shoved it down over his head. Tell them to go without me. His voice was now totally muffled. Prince Edward, sir, I do not believe that would be an option, seeing as your father and mother far outrank me in station, being that they are the king and the queen of this country, Morton replied in a matter-of-fact way. The poor valet just stood there stunned, saying nothing now. Edward peeked out from under the pillow. Remind me why a tree lighting ceremony that surely must take place after dark so that you can see the lights would require me to rise at this hour of the morning. Sir, the valet's shaky voice finally joined the conversation. It's just now noon, and the ceremony is due to begin at 5, seeing as these days the sun is setting roughly around 4:30. Your mother hadn't heard from you yet today, and assumed that you were going to speak with Alistair Pemberley at the capital before leaving for the family gathering. Jesus Christ! Edward sat straight up and stared at both men. Are you bloody telling me that I slept from last night to this afternoon? Well, Morton shrugged. I'm not here to tell you what you have or haven't done, but in a word, yes, the valet finished for him. Is there anything I can get, your highness, by way of breakfast? Edward rubbed both hands over his stubble-covered face. Just a coffee. And then he stopped himself and looked at the young valet. My apologies. What is your name? A court. Morton looked stunned at both the order and the inquiry about the valet. This is Jameson. I suppose we'll see you when you're up and dressed then, shan't we? One coffee, coming right up. And with that, Jameson rushed out the door to do the prince's bidding. The coffee, now coursing through his veins, was truly the only thing keeping Edward afloat. He made his way downstairs and ran smack into his father's back. Shit, he mumbled. Nice of you to grace us with your presence, his father retorted. Jet lag was all Edward bothered with. I see, came the reply from his father's end of this very stifled conversation. Edward! A higher-pitched, happier voice rang out through the halls as he turned to see his sister Charlotte coming toward him, arms stretched out. I'm so glad to see that you'll be with us this year. The girls are dying to see you. They want to hear all about America. Well, I wasn't in it, but Charlotte, go tend to your mother, King Alfred said to his eldest daughter. Of course. Charlotte nodded, ready to comply without question. She squeezed her baby brother's arm, and she slipped away. We'll talk later, yes? Edward nodded. A car is waiting outside to take you to the Capitol building, his father said gruffly. I want you to cooperate. Do you understand me? Edward dipped his head, saying nothing. He simply nodded, not in the mood to argue. Excellent. The king made a valiant attempt at smoothing things over with his youngest son by patting him on the shoulder and offering him a smile. You'll turn things around in your life, I just know it. And with that, he left the hall with Morton, leaving Edward alone with the young valet. Brilliant. He gave the guy a thumbs up and dramatically turned on his heels to head for the door. I suppose this means I'm spending my first waking hours with some old geezer who want to tell me how and where to spend my time. The much younger man had his hands firmly clasped behind his back out of respect. His shoulders were back, his head was bowed. I'm afraid I don't know what to say, your highness. Seeing the man stand there so stiffly, Edward realized the error in what he just said. Yes, he was going to see Alistair Pemberley, and he was going to be told where to go, what to do, etc. But how could he possibly complain about that when this poor valet lived that life day in and day out without the perks of being a prince? He grabbed the other man's shoulder with a gentle squeeze and sighed. I'm sorry, my good man. I shouldn't be so flippant with my words. And with a dramatic flair, he turned on his heels and walked back toward the door. I'm going to see a man about a job, and I'm going to do it with a smile on my face. I think. He's trying. I think. Unlike visiting the City Hall building in Astoria, no one stopped Edward when he entered the Capitol building in Crown Haven. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Your Highness, was the first greeting when he approached the front door of the building. A porter pulled open the door and bowed to the prince. Edward smiled at him and slipped inside, walking right up to the front desk. Whereas in Astoria, he looked like he was a crazy man just for saying his own name. In Whitelock, he barely had to open his mouth before the woman behind the desk said, Good afternoon, Prince Edward. To what do we owe the honor of this visit? Surely she'd heard that he was in town. After the visit to the market yesterday, everyone knew that he was back. Hello, Julia. Edward said, perfecting the art of reading nameplates of people working different jobs. He enjoyed watching the smiles spread across their faces, bliss bubbling up at the thought that someone, a prince no less, noticed them for who they were rather than brushing them off like another menial worker. I've got an appointment with Pembley. Yes, I did hear that. The woman named Julia nodded and picked up her desk phone, pressing a button to turn it into an intercom. One moment, please, she said to Edward before speaking into the device. Mr. Pembley, yes, Prince Edward is here. Shall I send him back? Yes, wonderful, of course, yes. Edward couldn't hear the other half of the conversation, but in truth, he was only half listening, caught up again in his own thoughts, most of which consisted of how much nicer the Crown Haven Capitol building was than any of the government buildings in Astoria. Why were they so run down, and why had his father done nothing to maintain them or make them something that people could be proud of, like the state buildings of Whitelock? You can head right back. Julia replaced the receiver into the phone cradle. If you walk straight down this hole, it's number 15A. You're a peach. Edward patted the desk with a smile and a wink. He didn't have to stick around to know that she was blushing as she watched him walk away. This woman would undoubtedly tell her friends about this interaction. Come in, an older voice called after Edward knocked on door 15A, and he did just that, shutting the door behind him. Afternoon, he said, sliding smoothly into the oversized chair near the man's desk. Edward. Alistair sounded a bit too pleased to see him. Edward, for his part, just nodded. So glad you're back in Whitelock. I cannot imagine the horrors that you saw over in Astoria. From everything I've heard, that place is just, well, never mind. I spoke with your father before your glorious return yesterday, and I have a wonderful schedule of events set up for you. Do you know? Edward asked, his voice deadpan, his face betraying his absolute boredom already. Your Highness will never believe the number of new businesses opening in Whitelock in the next month. Blew my mind to hear that they wanted to start it at this time of year, but who am I to tell someone what to do with their money? In any event, they all need ribbon-cutting ceremonies, and there's just no way your brothers can get there with all their duties. Thank God you're back in town. Edward pushed himself up, no longer slouching, and looked the man straight in the eye. You're telling me that the work you've assigned to me is, and there was a long pause then, ribbon cutting. Alistair chuckled. Store openings are smashing events. Cut the ribbon, kiss the babies, shake the hands with starstruck women. You were born for it. Was I? Edward asked with an eyebrow raised. How do you figure that? Edward? Alistair drew out his name, smirking. Look at this face. He used both hands to gesture up toward Edward. The women love this face. The whole country loves this face. Hell, I love this face. He laughed again, pressing his lips into a firm, lined smile. Edward drew in a deep breath. I see. And what of Astoria? Who will continue the work that I started there? It was Alistair's turn to look confused. Edward, son. And Edward grimaced, hearing that turn of phrase. I've been managing the dealings in Astoria with the mayor since before Vernon was old enough to drink. You just leave Astoria to me. Oh. Interesting. He knows the mayor by first name. That's weird. Calling Astoria. Edward. It was like the old days when the whole royal family could be together for events, and Edward stood on the balcony between his sister and brothers, looking out over the massive crowd that had gathered on this day to hear one of Whitelock's favorite sons sing Christmas carols with the children's choir of Crown Haven, witness this year's tree lighting, and of course see the king and his children live in person. 12 days before Christmas every year, this exact same scenario played out and repeated itself like Groundhog's Day, except the last few years, Edward hadn't joined. Rather than arriving on time for this auspicious event, he strolled into town mere days before the actual Christmas holiday. But as he stood there today, overlooking the massive fir tree about to be lit, he had a flashback. A warm feeling flooded his body as the lights went up, and the children began the first notes of Carol of the Bells. In his mind's eye, he saw Emma standing in front of not this tree, but a matching one featured in downtown Astoria. He could see her standing there in the bright yellow raincoat that they'd purchased at rainy day resale, the tiny rainbow lights flickering on the tree, the bright smile on her face. If he was sad before, this only served to bring tears to the brim of his eyes, threatening to spill out all over his cheeks as he heard the children sing. He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The children's voices rang out the classic tune, but what he heard instead was Alistair's voice from earlier. I've been managing the dealings in Astoria with mares there since before Vernon was old enough to drink. You leave that place to me. I have to go, he mumbled, more to himself than anyone else, but of course his sister heard him. What? She asked, her face falling at the thought of him leaving now. It's not even half over. Mum will be... But Edward couldn't wait any longer. He slid between his siblings and out the door leading to the balcony, glad that neither his father nor his mother had caught on just yet. They would, of course, catch on, but maybe he'd be far enough away by that time that it wouldn't matter, and they couldn't stop him. Back inside the building, he crouched in a quiet corner and pulled the cell phone out of his pocket, silently thanking the universe that it was always earlier in Astoria. Mikey, Edward whisper-screamed into the phone. I think my father's advisor, Alistair, is working with Keating.
That would be bad.
Chapter 35. Edward. Mikey was silent. Hello? Edward finally asked into the phone. Mikey? I'm not sure I understand. The man sounded different, like there was less pep in his step than any day that Edward had interacted with him since the moment they met on the airplane. Mikey? Edward repeated his friend's name yet again. My father's closest advisor has been the one keeping Keating's dealings a secret. The words flew out of his mouth. I knew it was all too fishy. There was no possible way that Keating could have kept it under wraps all on his own. How would he have managed to keep the financials a secret from everyone in the palace without one man on the inside? I don't know why I didn't put it together sooner. Probably because I was too... It'd be so cool if I could read, wouldn't it? It won't let me post. That's very sad. I see that, Jen, though. I can see that post. But that's the first thing I've seen from you since Parents Can Be Harsh, except when I wrote that. Yeah, I saw Parents Can Be Harsh, though. So, there's that. I don't know why I didn't put it together sooner. Probably because I was too far off to see it. But never mind that. I need your help. Your Majesty, I'm just a little busy right now. Perhaps we can talk another time. What? Edward choked on the word. When had Mikey ever not wanted to help? He swallowed hard and tried again. No, of course, but you see how important this is, don't you? Well, you know, stuff over here's important too. I got mouths to feed, so I think I'll be going just now. And with that, Mikey ended the call. What the? Edward stood hunched behind the metal knight, his mouth agape as he stared at the ground. A pang hit his stomach, realizing that Mikey had essentially hung up on him. Not rudely, per se, but he did just the same. Who else could he call? Not Emma, surely. Not only did he not have her phone number, but even if he managed to get it, she'd never want to speak to him after the way he left town without... And then it hit him why Mikey sounded the way he did. Blast! Edward mumbled to himself, smacking his forehead. It was his overwhelming self-pity over screwing things up with Emma the night of the election and the way his parents spoke to him on the phone that morning that made Edward not think of anyone but himself as he had climbed into that SUV that the palace had sent for him. Perhaps Mikey hadn't taken the news of his departure or the fact that he hadn't called since he left all that well. Hey, Anya, good morning. Well, Edward, old boy, you're on your own this time. He didn't know how he was going to get things done or even what he was going to do, but he knew that nothing would stop him until he got back to Astoria and set things right. Sad. Back at the tree lighting, Edward. Rather than cause a scene at the tree lighting ceremony, Edward returned to the balcony to rejoin his family after the call with Mikey ended. Despite how long it felt for him, the rest of them, minus his older sister Charlotte, barely seemed to notice his absence. Dad and Mum were still all smiles as the children's choir ended another classic. But the next morning, he set out to the Capitol building to speak with Alistair Pemberley once again. Never in his young life did he imagine that he would visit his father's advisor twice in 1 month, let alone back-to-back in 2 days. But this couldn't wait. As he slid into that same fairly uncomfortable chair he slouched in the day before, Edward attempted to look happier, chipper. He didn't have a word for it, but he could see in his mind's eye what he wanted to convey to the man across from him. I'm a little late, but I made it. Hey, Susan, how are you? Back so soon, Alistair offered a smile. Am I then to assume you're ready to take on some of the tasks that I set forth for you? The elder pushed a piece of paper toward Edward, and Edward, putting on the best act he could muster, let out an overdramatic sigh, propping his feet up on the corner of Alistair's desk. I suppose so. Not that I have much choice, given the, He purposely let his voice trail off, and he moved his hand through the air in a circular motion, as though he was attempting to think of a word. Circumstances? He finally decided on, or he made it sound like he had finally decided on, seeing as he had had this made up in his mind all along. Your parents' frustration? Alistair asked, and the prince shrugged, his hands clasped behind his head as he leaned back. That and the sale. I thought about fighting it, but I'm not even sure it's worth my time, let alone much of the family's resources. They're probably right. Alistair raised an eyebrow, leaning his forearms against the desk. Forgive me, Your Highness, I'm not really sure I'm following along with you. Edward tilted his head. What? The sale? Oh, Edward shrugged. I assumed Father told you that he finally decided to sell Astoria to the Americans. He forced out a little laugh. Those Yanks will be thrilled. They finally completed their state, I suppose. Alistair's face dropped. The man's eyes were wide, but Edward could see him forcing his wrinkled lips into a smile. He finally decided to pull the trigger, as it were. Yeah, Edward leaned back, using his best Americanized yeah sound. He said, it's a sinkhole. Can you believe it? Gotta get rid of it right quick, it seems. Something after my brush with the government officials there. They're losing more money per month than it makes, something like that. I'm sure he'll talk to you about it. Anyway, without that there for me for the job, I suppose shaking hands and kissing babies at ribbon cutting's as good as it's going to get for me. I get a paycheck for all that business now, don't I? Yes? Right? The young man didn't believe a word of what he was saying, but if he didn't lay it on thick, he knew there was no way Alistair would believe a lick of it. Alistair moved some papers around, clearing his throat. Yes, of course, yes. Great. Edward plastered a smile, wide, shitting grin on his face. And my father mentioned something about all working members of the family getting a credit card for incidentals. Alistair looked confused, but he didn't press the matter. Yes, of course. That won't be ready until after the holidays, but thank you for coming to see me today, Your Highness. But it seems that I've forgotten I have a prior engagement coming up momentarily. Another business meeting, you see. Say no more. Edward held up his hands, and then he smacked them down on the arms of the chair, pushing himself up to standing. Believe it or not, I also know about packed schedules. I'll see you around now. We're screwed. Alistair. Now this is exciting. We've never had anything that wasn't either from Edward or Emma's perspective. This is from Alistair's perspective. Oh, that's not true. We had a little aside from Keating earlier, didn't we? Alistair Pendley had been working for the Whitelockian royal family quite literally his entire life. His father got him a job in the palace as a valet for the then Prince Alfred. From there, he hitched his wagon to that rising star, and when Alfred was crowned king, it only made sense for him to bring his trusted valet along with him to the capital. It took less than no time for Alistair to learn that the mayor of a tiny parcel of land out west called Astoria was cooking the books. Sure, Alistair might have started hooking buttons for a prince, but he had a mind for numbers. Rather than alert the king outright, he chose to speak to that man privately, hoping that he could nail the crook and surprise the king with his brilliant work, and thus garner a promotion, or at bare minimum, a raise. Miller Clarkson, however, was a conniving man, and convincing too. Rather than lose his temper over being caught by the newly appointed young advisor, he welcomed him into the fold. Listen, Al. Can I call you Al? Miller had asked, and Alistair fumbled with his answer. I'd prefer... No, but Mayor Clarkson cut him off. Al, just between you and me, there's a paycheck to be had here. I could use a guy like you. I'm willing to bet you I pay you better than that royal blowhard. The unpleasant tone the mayor took made Alistair grimace as he listened, but still, the more he heard, the more he fell right into Miller's clutches, and before he knew it, instead of turning the old man into the new king, he was agreeing to be this guy's man on the inside. I could do so much more with you on the inside. So there he sat all these decades later in a seat of power in the Whitelockian government, second only to the king, with all his hard work about to slip through his fingers like sand through a sieve. All because that damned prince couldn't be just another pretty face. Alistair rubbed his hands over his entire face, rolling his eyes at himself behind closed lids. What were you thinking, you old fool? He asked himself in a whisper. That this could go on forever? So far, it kind of had. He'd worked with Miller Clarkson until he passed on, and shortly thereafter, his grandson took on the post, which is how Alistair came to know Vernon Keating. Vernon, he finally croaked into the phone. We've got trouble. Vernon Keating snapped back. More trouble than you letting the Prince of Goddamn Whitelock come over here to stir the people up? The type of trouble that includes your cash cow drying up. And Keating growled under his breath. How so? The king plans to sell Astoria to the Americans. Fuck. You know what the weird thing is to me? And you can all tell me your thoughts on this. Writing characters like this is difficult for me for a specific reason. And it's the same reason that when I see things about people like Elon Musk, I'm confused. Because if you already have so much money, doing so many crazy things to get more when like it doesn't even really tip the scales for you just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'm not that person. I don't have it in me to do that. You know what I mean? Which is why I'm not a trillionaire, clearly. But like to me, it's just not worth this for a little bit more money, or I guess a lot of bit more money. But like when you already have everything, it is, you're right, Nikki's right. It's power, not money. But like to me, like there's no logic to these things. You know what I mean? Like it's not worth it, you know? Like they can't be happy. How is it when a toddler gives you a random hug, everything just melts? It's true. When they figure out how to hug, like my daughter just started figuring out blowing kisses, and it's like the cutest thing on the planet, and I just melt into a million pieces when she does it. It's adorable. I totally agree, Mary. But anyway, I'll continue, but like I just don't like stuff that much. I also don't need power. I'm not like a power hungry person. Like I don't need to be in charge. I don't have that like drive that some people have. I don't have it. I'm missing that chip, whatever that chip is in some people. Lack of morality, lust for control, sort of like 100% like the orange, 100% like the orange. No question that you're correct. And like, you know, a little bit of Keating's description was based on him, not all of it. It's also based on another person that I knew in Astoria, or that I met in Astoria. Not, I guess knew is the wrong word. He probably doesn't even know I existed, but like I watched the dealings of this businessman in Astoria, and Vernon's based mostly on that guy. Short, grubbly man, you know, who just wants to own everything and screws everyone over because he can. That kind of person, you know? And you're like, this could just be a nice place if you just let it. Like we could all just, everyone could just have enough or a little more than enough and be happy. I don't know. Like, I don't know. This is crazy. Anyway, let's continue. Chapter 36 is called Keeping Astoria, Alistair and Keating. We've got to do something. Yeah, well, no shit, Keating roared back at Alistair. How could you let this happen? Me? Alistair raised his voice. The prince gets to your good-for-nothing town, and all you had to do was make nice. All you had to do was welcome him there and treat him like the silver spoon-fed baby man that he is. But instead, you set him off with whoever those idiots are that he became friends with. The basis of human decency and a solution to all the world's problems. Well, I don't know if you guys saw, if any of you follow me on Instagram, I posted something the other day that said, I'm not even that radical. I just want everyone to have healthcare, food, shelter, and basic rights. I mean, I want a little bit more than that, obviously, for people, but like, when you say it like that, it just doesn't sound that radical. Like, I just want everyone to be fed, have a roof over their head, and live a little bit of a nice life. Like, that's it. Have healthcare. Oh, that's it. It feels really basic. I'm not even asking much. Meh, but somehow I'm radical left scum. And you know what? I'm kind of fine with that. It's whatever. Let me be scum. I wrote a whole book about scum. Emma's definitely scum. I know. Me too, Amanda. Me too. Emma, total scum. You have to admit it. The orange would think that Emma is scum. The scum of the earth. She's like on the bottom of his shoe scum. Right? Yeah. But Keating, no. He's a nice one. He's good people on both sides. Alistair, Keating gritted his teeth. Do you remember Jane Prescott? The man thought on it, and he shook his head before remembering that they were on the phone, and Keating couldn't see him. No, the name doesn't even ring a bell. You're getting too old for this job, Keating replied. Are you planning to just sit there and insult me, or are you going to tell me who she is? Was, huh? Keating sighed. Jane Prescott is dead, but she was the woman who last looked into the connection between your country and our good-for-nothing town, as you call it. Right. This did ring a bell now that Alistair thought about it. I thought you took care of that. I did. Then why is it relevant? Her daughter is the one he became friends with. Well, her and some others like her. All they do is cause trouble, and your prince decided to take up with them and try to turn the town on its head. Be all of that as it may, Vernon, we've got a job to do. The king is now dead set on selling Astoria. If you want to keep your cash cow, we're going to have to make it look like he's making some serious money, and quickly. What if I find the money to fix that damn pier the Prescott girl's always on about? We can host some kind of event to announce that we're fixing up the place. And maybe you just tell that king of yours that you were wrong and actually there's a surplus in taxes. He might just be stupid enough to fall for that. Do you think those people over there will calm down if you make an announcement like this? Likely. It's all that damn Emma girl has ever asked for all year. She keeps showing up at my city council meetings. Say, Alistair's brow wrinkled with thought. What if you convinced them that you were going to do well enough by the town that they called and told the prince all the good news, and then perhaps he passes the news on to his father so it's more organic? Vernon snapped his fingers. Say, that might be your best thought in a long time, Al. You know I hate it when you call me Al. Alistair. Vernon rolled his eyes. I'll make a big to-do about shutting down the pier for repairs. Tell them we discovered a tax surplus, and we'll let the thorns in my side do the rest of the legwork. We don't even really need to fix the damn thing. They just need to get word back to that Edward of yours that the place is back on its feet and bring in money to Whitelock, right?
We're going to lower grocery taxes, and we're going to lower, not taxes, grocery bills by 800%. Just let word spread. You don't even actually have to do it. Just let the word spread. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
That wasn't even real when I wrote this, but it's real now. Chapter 37, A Visit from Keating. Emma. I've decided to bury the hatchet with you, Miss Prescott, the mayor said from his seat at my bar. Having him in my establishment, at my counter, drinking my wine was honestly the last thing I wanted on a December afternoon, but against my better judgment, I decided to hear him out. And why's that? I asked dryly. 'Cause it turns out you're right in the end. I raised an eyebrow, pressing my tongue against the back of my teeth to keep from saying something I'd regret. About which thing? The pier, of course. Uh-huh, I nodded slowly. And you're going to... We'll fix it, Keating laughed. I thought you'd be a little more excited. You lost the elections, sure, but you're getting what you've been after. Okay, what's the catch? No catch. He took a sip of his wine, swirled the glass, and then set it down. I want you there with me up on stage when I announce it. Come again? I asked. Miss Prescott, we're hosting an event for the last open weekend of the pier. We found a bit of tax overage and intend to use it exactly the way you suggested. So we'll have one last hurrah and we'll all be friends in the new year. I knew that if I could see myself, I would have seen a face that looked like Cruella de Vil with eyebrows reaching my hairline. I was, in a word, shocked. My head tilted to the side and I crossed my arms over my chest in a defensive move. Defensive for Keating, not for me. Now, I'm not a violent person, but when I heard those words come out of that man's mouth, I wanted to jump across the counter and grab him by the collar the way that guys did in old movies. I clenched my fists instead, and I managed to force words out of my mouth. You found tax overages. He simply nodded, and a sip of wine was swishing around in his mouth. I had no words. Mayor Keating, I will not be able to join you in this. No. The mayor coughed into his hand, wine threatening to spill out of his mouth. Miss Prescott, I don't understand. This is everything you and your friends have wanted. You don't want to be there when we break ground and show your supporters that we have an agreement now? What I wanted to do now was hit my own forehead like a cartoon character, but in my head I could hear the loud smacking sound. Still, I held it together long enough to say, Mr. Keating, I am thrilled to hear that you're going to be fixing the pier, and I hope your event goes real well, but I have to get back to work now. The man narrowed his eyes at me and tossed a $20 bill on the table as he stood. You're making a huge mistake. Chapter 38. Back to Astoria, Edward. Edward drummed his fingers on his thighs, looking around the packed Edinburgh airport. It felt oddly familiar. He'd been here not a few months before, on his way to Astoria that time as well. Hello? He said into his cell phone. You make it on the plane? Edward sighed. The first one. I'm still picking you up at the airport. Rubbing the back of his head, feeling bad for having to ask for help again, Edward let out a deeper breath. Yeah, if you don't mind. No, not a problem. I'll be there. Overheard at the Donnellys. Maureen's perspective. Mikey, you've got to believe me. It wasn't what I meant to happen. Prince Edward had shown up on the Donnellys' doorstep without so much as a phone call first, or at least if he had called, Mikey hadn't told his wife about it. Last she heard, the royals skipped town without a word and left the whole lot of them in the lurch. Maureen could hear the princely pleading through the wall. She was standing at the kitchen sink, her hearing impaired by the sound of rushing water while she washed the dishes by hand. Their dishwasher hadn't worked in months. She could feel her husband's frustration. She didn't even need to see him to know that his arms were crossed, leaning back in his comfy chair. What do you mean, how did I get here? From Whitelock? Well, I flew coach, Mikey. Coach! Can't rightly say I'm feeling bad for you at this moment, Your Majesty, was the first thing Maureen heard from her husband in the last 5 minutes. Whew! Laura, Mikey and Maureen's youngest daughter, pushed through the swinging door from the living room to the kitchen and pulled open the door to the refrigerator. You can cut the tension in there with a knife. Maureen paused her scrubbing long enough to look at her teenage daughter, who had just bitten down on an apple without bothering to wash it. What's he saying to him? Laura just shrugged. Sounds like the prince screwed up pretty bad. Do you know what he did? Far as I can tell, he hopped in a car a week back and disappeared without so much as a word to your daddy or Emma. Maureen shook her head and then got quiet all over again when she heard the prince's voice raise. Atlanta, Mikey. My layover was in Atlanta. Overnight. I slept there. Mikey, the place is more depressing than Astoria after a month with no sunshine, not to mention it smells. Maureen caught her daughter's eye, and both women chuckled quietly, not wanting to be overheard. Okay, real quick, have any of you ever been to the Atlanta airport? It truly is a sinkhole. Like, it's awful. Atlanta's a fun town to go to, but the airport is a mess. It's truly awful. But there are there's a hotel in the center of it. Oh, it's awful. It's just awful. You think Daddy's gonna accept the prince's apology? Pressing her lips into a firm line, Maureen rested a soapy fist on her hip. Truthfully, honey, your daddy's a stubborn man. Unless the prince has some real good explanation for his behavior, I think my husband's gonna make him suffer just a little bit longer. From the way he described Atlanta, it sounds like he's suffered enough. Guys, we're at 90%. We're getting down to the end of this. The book is almost over. We're gonna need something new this week. Overheard at the bar, Sarah Beth. Sarah Beth was shocked to see Edward again so soon, to see Edward again at all when she really thought about it. It felt like he'd been gone for eons and also barely a few minutes when he walked back into the bar, and she gasped, "Oh, well, look what the cat dragged in." And Emma turned to the spot. Emma turned to spot the prince in the doorway, and her jaw fell to the floor right alongside Sarah Beth's. The air seemed to get sucked from the room, and Sarah Beth looked between her friend and the prince, watching her eyes connect with his from across the room. She wanted to whistle or say something cheeky like, "Emma, your prince is back," or at the very least say, "I told you so." Sarah Beth had believed, nay, known all along that Edward would return for Emma. She just didn't know it was going to be before Christmas. Prince Edward strode toward the women casually, one hand deep in the pocket of what looked to be a very warm peacoat, and the other one holding an oversized bouquet of flowers that Sarah Beth herself did not recognize. They were blue, star-shaped, and absolutely stunning. She made a mental note to Google them later and find out where he'd gotten those. "Emma," he said barely above a whisper as he stopped in front of her, and Sarah Beth could feel the electricity between them, but Emma stood firm. She crossed her arms over her chest and looked up at him, not moving from Sarah Beth's side. All Sarah Beth wanted to do in this moment was shake Emma, scream in her face, and tell her to kiss the damn idiot, drag him back to her apartment and have her way with him, and maybe make royal babies. But she knew that that wasn't Emma's style. Instead, they were at a standstill. "Yeah?" Emma asked, not swayed by what her friend saw as a beautiful and grand gesture. Everyone in the place turned to look at the would-be couple. "Emma," Edward repeated in a softer tone, and then he cleared his throat, reaching to hand her the bouquet. "Can we speak privately?" With what could only be described as a forced sigh, Emma took the flowers, turned on her heels, and guided Edward back toward her office. Sarah Beth tried to follow, but the door quickly shut in her face. "Okay," Sarah Beth said. "Talk," she heard Emma's voice say. "You're never going to believe me, but..." And then the sound was lost to her. "Damn it," Sarah Beth mumbled to herself, leaning against the door. She was pressing her ear right against it, wishing that she'd bought that spy kit she'd seen advertised on social media. Maybe the algorithm did really know what she needed. "You're telling me that you want me to get up on stage and..." "Say what?" Emma didn't sound pleased. As much fun as it was to listen in, Sarah Beth felt bad spying on her friend, so she resigned herself to force the info out of Emma later and turned to go back to her post serving the patrons at the bar. Dun, dun, dun. Should we do one more? Just a little bit more? We have a few more minutes. We might as well. It's my birthday. We can read a little more. Chapter 39. A Chat with the King. Alistair and the King. "Your Majesty," Alistair Pembley stood when the king entered his office, just like he had every time King Alfred had entered his office since the two of them took their respective posts. "Oh, thank you, Mary." "Al," the king smiled at his longtime advisor warmly and slid into the seat where he sat for meeting after meeting with Pembley. "Get ready for my blowout Christmas sale," the man laughed. He tried to keep his cool, but the king's constant jokes about selling Astoria for the past few weeks were really getting worrisome. After Alistair's last conversation with Prince Edward, he was really starting to believe he'd lose the place. "Ah, happy birthday to Gage." That's right, I forgot I had so many birthday twins. But he didn't want King Alfred to see just how worried he really was, so rather than convey his fears, Alistair laughed right along with his sovereign. "Oh, Your Majesty, as freeing as it would be to let that land go, we should look at it logically." King Alfred sighed overdramatically in a way that, oddly enough, reminded Alistair of his son Edward. "Yes, yes," the king nodded, folding his fingers together over his lap. "But the documents you showed me most recently tell the story quite clearly. Astoria's a sinkhole, sucking the life and the funds out of this country." Alistair drew his head back, shocked to hear such language attributed to something rather benign. Had he gone too far with Vernon Keating's crooked financial dealings? "Your Majesty, it's really not that serious." He leaned forward and pushed a few documents across the desk at the other man. "In fact, the mayor there has managed to end this year on a surplus. Isn't that delightful?" Alfred genuinely was shocked by this news, reached out and grabbed the papers with narrowed eyes, touching his breast pocket in hopes of finding glasses there. "Really?" he asked. "Indeed," Alistair nodded. "There's enough money there for the major repairs needed by the city and possibly hire some new employees at the city level with profits to show for it at the end. He's really turned the place around this year. Tourism is skyrocketing, and with the pier back in working order after the aforementioned repairs, next year should be even better." Having found his glasses tucked into the collar of his shirt, the king was now perusing the documents handed to him. "I see. This is quite impressive. How the devil did he do it?" King Alfred had never been a genius with numbers, but this seemed out of the blue, even to him. Seeing how closely Alfred looked at each line, Alistair decided it was time to distract him, as usual. "Have you ever considered a visit there yourself?" "What?" Your Majesty has never even visited Astoria. No, the king cleared his throat. I have not, but what could I possibly do in Oregon? Alistair raised both eyebrows, simply shrugging. Meet your subjects, show them that their sovereign is not only real, but cares about them and being, well, their town. Alfred seemed to be taking this under consideration, the way he did with everything that Alistair suggested to him during his reign. I could see how that would prove wise. You could even bring Her Majesty if she's so inclined to take the trip. Perhaps afterward the two of you might want to visit America. Your nephew is in Hollywood, I hear. Regardless, when was the last time you saw the States, spoke with the president? Yes, that is true. We could make a tour of it. Exactly, Alistair nodded. I'll speak with my wife. I'm sure she'll want to see this place that our son has become so obsessed with. Alfred didn't wait another moment for her, pushing up out of the desk chair and leaving the papers behind on Alistair's desk. Could you have your assistant set up a flight for us? Certainly, Your Highness. Would you want to be there in time to see the event at the pier? And will Prince Edward be going along with you? Alfred shook his head. No, he's busy on the tour that you've set forth for him. Keep him working. And yes, we would need to be there for the pier repair party. Dun dun dun. It looks like we'll finish tomorrow, you guys. There's not much left. We're in the last 10% now. Ooh. Actually, I think we're in like the last 8%. So we'll finish this tomorrow, and then we get to start another book on Wednesday. I know, it's kind of exciting, right? It's kind of exciting to be reading my own book on my birthday. That was kind of fun. Yeah. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day. I almost want to go home and read to the end. Oh, that would be fun though. So I think we all agreed, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that we're going to read the Emily Wilde book next and then read the 3 Tale of Magic books. I know, I saw your message about that, about your son turning 16. It's a big one. Is he getting his license today? Or I don't actually know if that's how it's done anymore. Do you get it like on your birthday still? I did, but I don't know if everyone does that. But then we'll read the Tale of Magic 3 after that. So we'll basically, oh, you're totally fine. Yeah, it happens all the time. So yeah, I have a physical copy of the Emily Wilde book, and I think we should try that. I think we're gonna like it. It was suggested by Liz, and I usually love books suggested by Liz. So we'll see, you know, and if it doesn't vibe with us, we'll move on, you know. And that's kind of it. Let me, you know what? Can you guys wait 2 seconds and I'll grab it and I'll read you guys the back of it. Hold on. Okay, I got it. So it's called Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and I guess there's more than one book. Yeah, she is. She's still feeling crummy. It sounds like she's sleeping on my husband right now. So I think there's a couple books in this series, and if we end up liking it, we can read more. But I'll read you the blurb right now so that you guys can see how you feel about it. I think it sounds great, but I'm always open to feedback because we're a group. You know, this is a democracy, not a monarchy. Okay. A curmudgeonly professor journeys to a small town in the far north to study fairy folklore and discovers dark fae magic, friendship, and love in the start of a heartwarming and enchanting new fantasy series. That's the top little blurb. Now here's the whole thing. Yeah, this is book 1 of the Emily Wilde series, apparently. Cambridge professor Emily Wilde is good at many things. She's the foremost expert on fairies. She's a genius scholar with meticulous research who is writing the world's first encyclopedia of fairy lore. But Emily Wilde is not good at people. Ooh, relatable content. I also know a lot about fairy tales and not a lot about people. She could never make small talk at a party or even get invited to one, and she prefers the company of her books, her dog Shadow, and the fair folk to other people. So when she arrives at the hard scrabble village of, oh, I don't know how to pronounce that. It's like a, that's an awful lot of consonants. It's, my God, I'm going to spell it for you. Hrafnsvik, Hrashvanik, perhaps. Emily has no intention of befriending the gruff townfolk, nor does she care to spend time with another new arrival, her dashing and insufferably handsome academic rival, Wendell Bambley, who manages to charm the townsfolk, muddle Emily's research, and utterly confound and frustrate her. But as Emily gets closer to uncovering the secrets of the hidden ones, the most elusive of all fairies lurking in the shadows outside the forest in town, she finds herself on the trail of another mystery. Who is Wendell Bambley, and what does he really want? To find the answer, she'll have to unlock the greatest mystery of all, her own heart. Well, and there's a lot of, great reviews for it here. Thoroughly charming academic fairy tale, complete with footnotes and a low-key grumpy romance. It sounds really good. She grabs the reader's attention by drawing them into the folklore and the surrounding world, a great read for fans of Erin Morgenstern and Sarah J. Maas. Full cast of characters, well-developed fairy lore, pervasive sense of cold, add depth to delightful proceedings in which includes scholarship, yes, but also a dangerous hint of romance. Emily is an Amelia Peabody in snowshoes, and readers will be utterly charmed by her. And there's tons more. A darkly gorgeous fantasy that sparkles with snow and magic. This whole book enchanted me. So sweet, right? I mean, there's a ton of great quotes about it. So, I don't know. I figured we'd read this. Like, it's a little bit of a twist. I feel like you could read it. I mean, you think that, Nikki, but we've given up on a couple books over the years, right? Anyone heard of BookBub? No, what is it? I don't know, but I'm open to learning always, Anya. I haven't talked to him since we all talked about it, but he had, when he was here, told me it was okay to read a sample. He just, it's not ready yet, but he is going to give me a piece that he wants me to read to everyone. Let me message him actually right after we get off of here and see if he has a piece ready, and maybe I'll read it once because I think the amount of my book that's left for tomorrow is probably less than our normal time. We did give up on that fairy book. I can't remember the name, but it was so boring. Do you guys remember that? It sounded like it was going to be so up our alley, and it was so boring. Oh my God, it was so boring. We just couldn't do it. And I tried to read it on my own without you guys. I tried to finish it, use BookBub, great deals. Oh, that's awesome. Maybe my brother will let me read a couple of paragraphs to you guys tomorrow. After we finish my book, and then we can start this one on Wednesday. I'll find out from him. If we finish mine halfway through tomorrow, yeah, a book I enjoy. Yeah, no, of course. We just all, okay, here's the thing. We all give up on that first fairy book. It was like 6 books into book club. It was too boring. We gave up on that one romance novel because it was like, the kind of book, so you guys know the snow book that we always make fun of, like we were able to finish that because even though it was like in the writing, it was palatable. I tried to read that Fine Line one with us, but it was too much for us even. And then yeah, the horror one that was too crazy. Oh, I love that, Anya. That sounds great. Yeah, so we've given up on 3 books over the years. That's not so bad in 3 years though, right? 3 books in 3 years? Not bad. Fine Line had too much beep boop, but also it was too unbelievable. The snow book, even though we were like, half the time, at least there was some plausibility to it. The Fine Line book had no plausibility to it. For me, it was just like too far. I was like, come on, you guys. Not that I need things to be real. Obviously, we read fantasy, but like, it was one of those where it's like, why are you under your boss's desk? You know what I mean? Like one of those things. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and let me text my brother right now. I'll find all that info for you guys. And it was just too out there. I completely agree. But like I said, we're coming up on 3 years of book club in January, you guys. Like, January is our 3-year anniversary. Everyone give yourselves a round of applause, because like, how many things can last that long that are just like for pure, unadulterated joy, love, and fun? No money to be made by anybody, no ulterior motives, no, like, this is just a group where people get together, talk about books, talk about their lives, share things about their kids, whatever, on the internet. Yeah, but like, we all just read together, share books, share info, share life experiences. No one's selling anything. I mean, like, obviously you guys own my book, but like, that's not what this is for. You know what I mean? That wasn't the purpose of it. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. We do support other authors, and I think we should continue to do that. But I don't think you would consider that it being something for sale, just because we've bought so many of Chris Coffer's books over the years now because of this club. He's made a lot of money off of this book club, I will tell you that. The number one person that has made money off of our book club is Chris Coffer. I need a book in person. Any suggestions? Okay, great. Good question, Jen. My questions for you right now are, do you need a specific genre? Are you looking for a specific vibe, even with or without genre? And what was the most recent 1 or 2 that you guys have read that you loved? I have so many suggestions, always. We can go over to my bookshelf even, if you want, real quick. We have time. It sounds like the baby's still asleep. Let's go to the bookshelf and I'll show you some of my favorite books. Why don't we do that? Let's do this. Let's have some fun. We're going on a field trip. Let's move this stocking out of the way. Okay, what are some great things to read? Let's see what's here. Okay, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow is by Gabrielle Zevin. I've almost loved everything by Gabrielle Zevin, so let me highly suggest literally anything written by Gabrielle Zevin, okay? If you want to go in a completely different direction, because you guys know I love a memoir, I have had this memoir. Can you pull them out and show them so I can screenshot? Yes, let's do it. I'm going to sit down. Sorry, okay. So this is... Okay, let's do this properly. So this is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. If you guys ever want to go through like my things that I've read on, hey Lauren, Goodreads, you'll see which of her books I loved the most. All of them have been good. Some of them are great, right? This is one of the ones that is great. So this book, I have had this book since I was a teenager working at Barnes & Noble, no joke. It is called I'm Not Myself These Days, and it is a memoir by a drag queen who, like, a drag queen that retired in the year 2000, so like an old-timey drag queen, which is amazing, right? If you want to know how I've been radicalized, I've been reading memoirs about drag queens since I was literally 19 years old, so I've always been the same, in case anyone was wondering who I am. But I love this book, and it is a really interesting memoir, something that I don't think a lot of people read anymore, but at the time it was like on the end caps way back in like 2004 when I bought it, you know? The author is Josh Kilmer Purcell. I'm going to spell it for you. Kilmer-Purcell. And The Goldfish Matters. When you read the book, you'll know why if you choose to read that one. So that's another really good one. I love both of those. Hold on, I'm putting that back on the shelf so that we can keep getting other suggestions, because there's always, there's always more. Okay, if you are reading with your children and you have kids that are 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade-ish, this is one of my favorite kids books ever. I know that Jen asked for her book club, but like, this is called The Egypt Game. I don't know if kids still read this, but this book is amazing, and it totally sparked my imagination for years, and I've kept my original copy of it for that reason. So, The Egypt Game, really good one. Okay, let's put these back here. Oh, okay. This book is called The Secret History by Donna Tartt. She's written a lot of great books. When I was in high school, my senior year of high school, I was in my English teacher's classroom during her second period, which was her prep period. And I was just sitting there doing homework because she let me hang out in there because I'm a nerd, whatever. And she read the first chapter aloud one day, just out of the blue. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And then she locked it in her desk drawer and she was like, now you have to go get a copy and finish it for yourself. And I was like, ah, this is the first book that ever made me cry in public. I was a teenager, I was in high school, and I was on an airplane finishing this book. I gasped, I laughed, I cried. This probably isn't the book that most teenagers should read or would read, but the teacher knew me well and I could handle it. This is definitely an adult book, definitely worth reading with a book club. So that's a good one. Let's see what else we have that's cool here. Let's see. What else is interesting? I mean, like, obviously I have way more books than this. These are just some of the ones I have displayed. Oh, okay, this one's a fun one. This is called How I Paid for College, a novel of sex, theft, friendship, and musical theater. This was written by one of my, I knew him before I worked with him. He was one of my independent study professors in my master's for when I was learning to write, and he wrote this, so you can probably hear some of it. And if it, he's written a couple of scripts for Broadway as well, but it's like a story about going to Juilliard and whatever like that. That's a really cool one. It's called How I Paid for College. The author of that one is Mark Acito, Acito. I guess we can stop there for now. That's like a good start, right? I think. I don't know if you want more. Oh, yeah. There's so many good ones. But that seems like a good, I guess, yeah, you're welcome, Jen. Happy to do it, always. I'm always happy to make suggestions of books and fun things for you to read. I read a lot, obviously, so those are like old ones that I've read like years ago. If you ever want new stuff, you can always go on my Goodreads and see that. But none of those things are on Goodreads because Goodreads didn't exist when I read those things. I'm an old lady. What are you gonna do? But also I think that like a lot of those books aren't being suggested by anyone because they're old. So anyway, all right, I will see you all tomorrow. I hope you have a great